right, sound rolling, and let's rock.
My Mickey, my moon to me, just
Go with me, go with me.
Everybody want to pay while they on the pay. Everybody better want to pay. Better read down with the Bible. Better 55 fans for the rain. My mom is about gold, okay? If you hide with me, if you want to pay, never he got power to pay. We can look at it on it. Come on, Cannalachia.
Hey everybody, it's Cannalachia time.
How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
I'm super excited to JC. You want to know why?
Why?
Because we have Annie from CannaBuzz here.
I know. I'm super excited about it.
So excited. And there's huge news. So normally we would do our own little, like you and I would talk about the news and we bring in our guests. But because of what Annie does, and we're going to talk about that in just 2 seconds. And because of the huge news, now mind you guys, this is November 8th, 2023 that we're recording this. So huge news that came out last night from our neighboring state, Ohio.
Ohio.
Ohio has legalized recreational cannabis. Woohoo! Party sound!
Yes.
So, Annie, thoughts? Opinions?
I would say that Sturgis, Michigan's going to lose a lot of visitors.
Ah! Touche. I would. They probably are.
There's still a lot of love for Michigan, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Last night, I started looking at home prices around Yellow Springs, Ohio yesterday. Because last night I looked at Sean. I was like, Ohio is looking pretty sexy. Said no one until tonight.
You know, I actually saw an article the other day that showed that home values had increased over the past like 7 or 8 years in places that had passed cannabis legislation, specifically in places with recreational. And I found that to be very interesting.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, you know.
You know why a lot of that is, though? It's because the cannabis operations can't put their cash anywhere, so they end up buying real estate with all the cash.
Interesting.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah.
Well, you know, I've heard for a while that our folks up there in D.C. are supposed to be working on that.
And I don't know if it's right when they feel like it. And I don't know if it's all. So I know that this happened in California too, where especially in like the major cities, L.A. and San Diego, when we legalized, there's not necessarily a whole lot of farmland in Southern California, so a lot of people were buying up real estate and doing indoor grow operations inside.
That sounds like a straight out episode of Weeds, right?
I think that was an episode, actually.
There was an episode of Weeds, and and this was before. I don't know if you guys remember the Bel Air mansion story.
Yeah.
So do you know?
No,
about this?
I don't know the full story, but
So there was a guy that bought. It was one of the biggest mansions in Bel Air. So if you can imagine what that looks like. I think it was 4 stories. 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
You know, things that we can't even comprehend, maybe even more than that. And they figured out, they rated it, and it was an entire grow operation. He lived in like one room that was next to the kitchen, and the rest was just a grow house.
wow.
Oh, my God. His clothes must have smelled so good.
Right?
I bet it.
Never had to do laundry.
What he was doing was actually made sense, and I don't know if I have to look up like what happened to him, because I was kind of a kid at the time. I think like 17 or 18. But what he claimed and was that he was a botanist and that he was trying to create strains for specific ailments and he was just giving it away for free to different people and doctors and things. It always made me question, because when I was 17, I got diagnosed with IBS and ulcers, and so that was the origin of my cannabis as medicine. And I used to just go collect it from my doctor, my family physician.
Nice.
So I always wondered if my medicine came from that guy in Bel Air.
Hey, it could have. You know, one of the things I think about is, did he have solar panels? I mean, if he can afford that house.
Yeah.
And if he was giving it away, imagine that electric bill.
I don't even know how you afford any of that. He must have. There's no
Right?
way he was giving that away.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I was 17, I think 18 when this happened, so my brain could be remembering half the story.
Well, but you know, at the end of the day, regardless of however that cannabis went out into the world, I'm certain that it helped a lot of people that needed it.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, because I wasn't getting it for free from my physician. So
Right.
so he might have been selling it to the big rock ducks around Hollywood and Beverly Hills, and then maybe giving it away to a handful of people, claiming altruism. I don't know.
That's a really cool story.
It is. So, but what? So Ohio. So
Yeah.
how are we excited? What do we think? And you, as a cannabis business owner here in Kentucky, what are you? How are you feeling about it? Are you mixed emotions or?
I've heard that, Ohio, I know when they first tried to legalize, it was a complete mess, and that's why they actually voted no on it. I had heard that this was actually not going to pass because people were against it for random reasons. But I'm sure it'll take several years to actually implement.
Yeah.
By then, medical will ideally be in play in Kentucky. Of course, how medical, moves in Kentucky, we'll see what the regulators come out with.
I read something last night. I think it was on NBC News that stated though that that would, when we use the word implementation, you're looking at, it takes time to roll stuff out. But there was like the term in there, and don't quote me verbatim, but they said something like 30 days.
In the Ohio bill?
Yeah, I saw that. I
Whoa.
swear I did. So, and if we need to, I'll try to look it up while we're here. But I saw that, and I thought that's kind of strange because I have not seen anyone pass anything and it be like, in 30 days.
Right.
But I remember reading it said like in 30 days, and I don't know. It sounds a little.
Well, I'm wondering if that's for the already existing.
Yeah, the medical dispensaries, if they want to move into rec.
Well,
Of course, that's all like MSOs,
That's
so it
true.
doesn't help small businesses. It
Right.
doesn't
Right.
help.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know some folks that live in Ohio, and when the medical when it rolled out, they said it was total mess.
Yeah.
There's just not enough locations, not enough strains. People would pay and get their card, and then they have to drive 2.5 hours to get to a dispensary to maybe find out that they don't have what they need. Obviously, when things roll out for new, you got issues to work on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think this is pretty exciting. We still have love for the folks in Michigan. I got some folks up there, and some of them that actually work in cannabis. And but for some of the people suffering here in Kentucky, until we get our stuff laid out kind of straight, currently under the governor's executive order, this makes it a lot easier for those folks to cross just over the river, right?
It depends
no?
on when it's implemented.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And
That's true,
technically
but-
in Kentucky, if you buy rec and you don't have a medical card in Kentucky and you get caught with pot in Kentucky, it's still a crime.
Right.
So it
Right.
would only help the medical patients, but technically they could
That's
still
what I was
go to
saying.
Ohio already,
And get that.
assuming
yeah.
there's dispensaries
see, I
in
thought-
Cincinnati and
I
don't know,
thought Ohio, you had to have an
Ohio card.
an Ohio card.
Current.
Oh,
So
yeah.
That's so in California it was a huge thing with a lot of scam artists and con artists because of course tourists come to LA from all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
And you go down to Venice Beach and you would see all these big signs, medical marijuana card, $50,
Sign you up right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't live here. Doesn't matter.
It did, and they would, and it didn't because you didn't have to live in California to get the medical card. However, when you came to our dispensaries, in order to actually purchase anything, you had to have a state ID along with your medical card.
Oh, that's tricky. I'm glad I didn't tell that guy yes.
Right? Nowadays, it's not. Nowadays, it's fully recreational. But back then, back then in the early noughts, it was, and I felt so bad for people because
Yeah.
they would, come in and have, and thinking that they were doing everything by the book, but they'd, hand me their Arizona driver's license or whatever. I'm like, sorry, man.
Right.
It was such a bummer.
That is a bummer.
Yeah. And then it was funny seeing Mika because I actually was living in Kentucky when it literally 6 months after I moved to Kentucky, it went full recreational back in California. And so when I showed up back home, I was like, oh, shoot, I have a Kentucky driver's license now. And they're like, no, you're fine. It's
Doesn't matter.
It's recreational. You're good. You're over 18. You're fine.
Nice.
Sweet.
I sometimes wonder if here in Kentucky if we'll ever get there. I know that's been a hot debate for a very, very long time, and medical cannabis has been kicked, or as we like to say, that can's been kicked down the road quite quite a bit over quite a bit of time. Sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied there. Over decades, people fighting for that. And, I am certainly in support of people using cannabis medically. I do believe, though, if people want to use it recreationally, we live in a country where we glorify alcohol. And, I mean, we're here in the bourbon state. And I don't have anything against that. I'll sit down and have a glass of bourbon with you. Currently, I'm taking a little damper from alcohol. I'm detoxing my liver, and but it's one of those things that whether it's TV, whether it's radio, whether it's an event, we glorify alcohol, and so cannabis has medicinal value, and so we should be at a point where it shouldn't be treated any different. And I think if we could ever get to the point where we could really fully educate people and get to the point of talking about all the cannabinoids and those sort of things, I want to see hemp in all kinds of things. I have it in shoes. I have it in this. But I want to see that here in America. I want to see it made here, And I think until we get past the whole marijuana craze, that it's such a bad thing or there's such issues, how do we do that if we don't get past that, to flourish?
I think eventually, new generations will come in, and kind of like the generations now, have never known the world without social media, or never known the world without a cell phone or the internet. Eventually the kids that are being born now, they'll never know a United States where cannabis was illegal. And it's just like changing over that guard and getting it normalized and getting people to understand that, this isn't a bad thing. It is a medicine. It can be used medicinally. It can be used recreationally. There is a point in which you have too much THC, just like you have too much alcohol. So it can be abused, but, no more than most other things that are on the shelves.
Well, that's true. And I say that a lot. I mean, we can abuse anything. We can abuse food, alcohol, doesn't matter.
I abuse sugar just about every hour of the day.
So. Amen.
I might have abused a little of that before we got on here. So, that happens.
Sugar and caffeine, man.
Yeah.
That's my fuel.
Yeah.
Caffeine,
I always use the analogy to caffeine, where in the 1920s, caffeine was seen as a drug, and no one really consumed it. And it wasn't until it was in soda fountains that suddenly it was, this is just like a normal beverage. It doesn't matter. And now it's every street corner, every house, every school in America has it.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Speaking of, maybe that's something to think about. Put it in a soda fountain. Hey,
I mean, working on it.
Speaking of, so should we roll into that?
Well, so I had one more thought.
Oh, yeah.
on the legalization, because we also have this lawsuit happening right now coming out of Massachusetts. I don't know if you know about this, Annie, but there's a law firm that's representing, I think it's a dozen or so small businesses in Massachusetts that are actually suing the United States Attorney General.
Great.
Right? For barricading intrastate commerce of cannabis products.
Oh.
And because it's preventing that from, you were saying earlier, because you can't buy land, you can't invest.
You can't bank. So they won't accept your money.
Right. They want to accept
IRS
your
will
money.
take it, though.
Credit card transactions, when you have a company, I don't want to name any other company, but if, for instance, you wanted to have CannaBuzz in Ohio and over in Cincinnati, you would have to have two separate businesses that were manufacturing or housing the product, because you can't actually deliver product intrastate. Blah blah blah. So the hope, I think, is that this will all go away on a federal level.
I mean, that would be amazing. It'd be brilliant. It needs to happen. Absolutely. I think I kind of wonder, there was, in the 1930s, there was this bill called the Uniform Narcotics Act, and it basically took all this hodgepodge of regulations that were throughout the nation that had to do with morphine and opioids, and they all had different regulations, just like cannabis now has all different regulations. And they created this Uniform Narcotics Act, and they made a federal rule that everybody adopt this, and then we all have the same one. that Uniform Narcotics Act actually had cannabis as an optional clause in it.
It's the SCA, right? The Substance Control Act? Or is that a different act?
That came later.
Oh, okay.
The Controlled Substances Act. That came, it was the same language, basically, that was put into that. But this was in the 1930s. And it was this like blanket law. In comparison, there was the Volstead Act, which repealed alcohol. And when they did that, it was like all these states started repealing that act. And when the 32nd state repealed it, it was suddenly considered legal again, alcohol. So can we get to the point we're now over the 32 threshold for medical? We're getting close to 32 for recreational. I think Ohio is like the 26th state or
26, 27th.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We're at 39, I thought.
No, I think
Medical.
it's in the that's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
for recreation,
So we're over the
yes.
medical hump of 2/3 vote of the states, and we're almost there for recreational. A couple more years, we probably will be. So can that be an action of, hey, more than 2/3 of the states agree with this? Can we just create a blanket uniform cannabis act and it be legal everywhere?
Yeah. And then and counties, states individually can regulate it how they want. You know, in California, for instance, you can't get cannabis in every single county. There's still counties that are
Right.
rolling out
Dry counties.
dispensary. Yeah, we have dry counties in Kentucky of all places.
I don't know. Do you know which county in Kentucky went wet at this election? I missed it.
Oh, no.
My home county just went wet like 4 years ago, and so there couldn't be but like two. So 2 years it went wet, but there's not many left. But I find that very interesting. But yeah, you make a great point with that. If we did that, local government could decide how they want to do that if
Can't
that
buy
wants to be
weed
a
on
part.
Sundays,
So,
so
well, there's all those
That's a
seed
holy day. I mean, cannabis
Yeah.
was the anointing oil. I
Right.
don't know.
All right, you can't buy
Exactly.
weed on Mondays because everybody's got to go back to work.
every seed bearing plant.
I think was it Rockcastle County? Last I heard, Rockcastle was still dry, and I only know
I don't know.
because there's a music
Gonna have to look
festival
that
that
one up.
happens out there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They've been trying to figure out how, like, if we sell cups, can we give beer away?
I mean, they use that for cannabis in D.C. Hey,
Right.
we'll sell you
That's
this pencil
right.
for $50, and
Yeah.
here's a bag of weed that goes with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Now, are you allowed to use it publicly in D.C.? Can you clarify that for me,
I
or
don't
do you
think,
know?
like smoke publicly?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know what it's. I know in the '90s there was like march on D.C. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Where
They
they-
still have like a smoke out or smoke in
where they
or
like
something
well
like
they
that.
just sat on the steps of the cannabis
Cannabis
of the Capitol and like rolled joint and they were
Yeah,
and
they
the
still do that.
famous somebody. But I also learned through and recently. So I also went to high school in Boston, and we used to have 420 in the park every year. And everybody would go to the park, and everybody got high. And the whole, like, you couldn't leave. Like, there were cops all around, and they
Oh,
would
yeah.
check your bags when you were leaving to make sure you weren't leaving. You had to throw everything away as you left.
How bizarre.
Whatever. Why can't I think of the name of the park? in
So
the
you're
middle of
only bringing
Boston?
your dime bag, not your
Yeah.
whole bag.
Pretty much. And so I thought it was like on April 20th, weed is legal in Boston in this part. And no, it turns out just so many people were showing up and doing it that the
Yeah.
cops were like, we give up.
Yeah,
But we're not going to let you guys leave with it.
right.
So
So bizarre.
So it was just this like
I
it's
smoked it all. I don't know.
right, but they could have actually arrested all of us right,
Right.
then and there. They just were like, no.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a great plan. I think as not only citizens of the Commonwealth, but as Americans, maybe that's what we should do.
Smoke
Yeah.
out.
I mean,
Smoke
we people
Triangle
do them,
Park.
but yeah, it's kind of like Jefferson County, Louisville. For folks out there listening, I think they decriminalize.
Oh, yeah, they did.
It's been a couple years. I know that we were doing an event there this summer, and there were folks utilizing cannabis on the street, and no one seemed to have a problem. No one was getting their panties in a wad. No one was getting arrested, and everything was cool. And
So if I'm not mistaken, and I could be confused about that because I've heard so many stories that in Kentucky it is at the police officers that there's like a soft decriminalization on what they consider a personal amount, and it's at the police officer's discretion whether or not, and it's a fine. It's not so it's a misdemeanor. It's not a felony if you're holding a personal amount. if they want to fine you?
I don't know that to be
I don't
true.
know.
I mean, I will tell you that I've spoke with some law enforcement officers. I will not name any of them, but that is the least thing that's on their mind.
Yeah.
There are so many other problems that we have, and it's not that. And I do believe, though, I don't remember what the amount of cannabis is now between a misdemeanor and a felony. Do you know?
I don't
can't
know. I
It's like-
remember 4 seeds is a
Okay.
misdemeanor and 5 is a felony, but that was like 20 years ago
Okay.
that my dad told me that.
Yeah, I don't think it's that anymore. Because I've
No.
heard so many people getting pulled over and like having their cars searched, and then when the cop finds like a roach or
Yeah.
a joint or whatever, they're like,
Yeah, get out of here.
"Get out of here! Here's your speeding ticket."
Right.
Or,
But
"Here's
I
your
also
ticket
know the opposite of that, where a cop
Oh,
has
really?
found a roach and they've been like, well, you're going to jail.
Oh, cool.
You know.
So, all right. So it's not.
I think we're in no man's land still.
Right?
But maybe that's something Governor Bashir can do in his second term.
Thanks.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, maybe that can happen before we go complete recreational.
And then maybe President Bashir in 2029.
Yeah,
could-
yeah. Man, after he did that acceptance speech, every one of the newscasters was like, oh, is he running for president?
Right?
Well,
Because he should.
well, I'll be honest with you. I'd like to see another president. Well, not another, but I'd like to see a president. I know Kentucky has claimed Lincoln, but there's that argument between Illinois and stuff. But it's time. I think it's time to
Yeah.
send someone from the Commonwealth up there.
Absolutely.
So I would like it.
I mean,
Wouldn't you
he's
like
been
it?
a great governor. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't care what you say. I'll be honest with you. There's been a few things during the term that I probably personally disagreed with, but you know what? We can't all agree all the time. That doesn't mean we can't love each other,
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, our country was watching our governor.
yeah.
The compassion, there's a lot of folks out there that's utilized, I don't know, things against the governor during this race. And what I will say, not to get too political, but during this race, what I did notice was that there's a difference in negativity and positivity when
Yep.
you're running a campaign, and that obviously the people showed up for that. And I think all of us, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but many of us, we're just tired of the negativity.
Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing the negativity. I mean, that just it continues, and that's not what we want. Let's talk about ideas.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how do we make this better. How do we get like high-speed railway so that you and I and Amanda can hop on a train and go and have dinner in Chicago and be back in the same
yeah, that'd
day.
be great.
You do it in Europe. Why can't we do it here? But there's so many ideas. I
know.
don't want to get on a
There's
whim
so-
on that. But
No, but it's a great analogy, but I think it's more of an urban sort of city analogy, but I think you
Right.
guys will get it. But when you're waiting for a bus and the bus comes and you find out that bus isn't going directly to your doorstep, but it is going to drop you off 2 blocks away, you don't not get on the bus.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's not going to, you get on the bus and then you walk the other 2 blocks. But you don't just go, no,
right.
I'm not, screw the bus. I'm not getting on it at all.
Right.
So that's the way it is with politics. They may not exactly meet every single checkbox of all of your wants and wishes for society, but if they meet 2/3 of them,
Right.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, and I know we spoke about this in a last episode, but you were talking about like playing chess, and I said, when the governor did the executive order for folks that need this for a medical condition, what I said about that was, we have to be careful when we start throwing around executive power. However, maybe just because I have this personally affects me, maybe that's why I feel that way, but I truly believe that Governor Bashir did this out of compassion. He cares about his people. I believe that. I've known his parents. They're good people. They were always kind to me, and I know they raised him well. And so, there's going to be a lot of people that's probably going to disagree with me, but I think for what he's had to go through, I mean, put your feet in that man's shoes, leading a commonwealth during a pandemic where no one gets along about anything,
Floods, tornadoes.
Exactly.
all of it.
And everyone
Hunger.
locked up in their house arguing over what's right or wrong. It's kind of, but here we are on the other side of that. And I think we really have to think about, how do we move forward from that? And how do we, as citizens of the Commonwealth and citizens of this nation, how do we live together as brothers and sisters and agree to disagree, but move forward and progress? We
I
need
think
to.
that's where the Team Kentucky slogan and
Yeah.
motto really, drove home because it wasn't about him or his opponent or, Republican or
Right.
Democrat or whatever. It was about Kentucky
We
and
the
what's
people.
best for Kentucky. Yeah, we the people. Yeah.
On that note, because that's a lot of cannabis news.
One more. United we stand. Divided we fall. So
Divided we fall.
that's right. That's right.
Beautiful.
So
So, Annie, we're so excited to have you here. You have a business. So you'll tell us about it, but Annie owns CannaBuzz here in Lexington, Kentucky. So tell us a little bit about what is CannaBuzz about.
Yeah, so it's Cannabuz Bar and Dispensary. The dispensary is currently open. The bar is in route. We have a temporary bar that's open now on Friday nights, but we had to go through like all this rezoning and stuff to get the zoning, applicable to bars, and a lot of like development stuff that I never ever imagined myself getting into. But we got approved.
Yay!
Now we're
Congratulations.
thank you.
I
Now
always, whenever it comes to that bureaucratic red tape stuff that
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never had to really deal with, I just always imagine, what are they, the Volgons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like just having to deal with them. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it was a hard process. Fortunately, I have a lot of experience working in bureaucracy and pushback because of our lovely plant cannabis. So we got through the process, and now we're working on raising funding so that we can get the actual bar, like the building, all up to snuff to turn it from a warehouse into a bar. But the dispensary is open. We retail a bunch of Kentucky products that my manufacturing company OP Innovates makes. And we have a range of the most intoxicating product, 13th floor, to the least intoxicating product, which is a hemp heart protein, no cannabinoids at all, delicious. And so we're just trying to really, again, normalize cannabis, normalize hemp, educate people. Kentucky was the epicenter of the cannabis industry for a very long time. And in the early 1900s, 90% of the cannabis in in the United States came from Kentucky. So really trying to get that back into people's minds and have them learn that. Really providing all natural products. We don't sell any Delta 8 or synthesized poison. It's all natural from the plant. So pretty much every product on the shelf that's a hemp-derived THC product is a synthesized THC, whether it's Delta 8. And even a lot of the Delta 9 that's on the shelves is a synthesized product. They take a CBD isolate and put a bunch of chemicals in it to catalyze a conversion. And I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today about that and how, it's not necessarily that Delta 8 is a bad compound. In fact, the first record of it was back in forever ago in some ancient temple or something where they found it in someone's blood.
Huh.
Probably not blood, probably some tissue or something.
Right.
The medicinal value of it could have benefit. However, the way that it's manufactured is the detrimental point. And the neurologist that was on the podcast, Ethan Russo, he's like the king of cannabis research. He was saying, I wouldn't even trust a lab at this point to manufacture these products. You should never trust some random company that is not regulated to make these products.
Yeah, it's where my one experience with Delta 8 was a vape. It gave me a headache.
Yeah, there's been horrible respiratory failure problems with people smoking Delta 8, a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, I literally had 2 hits of a vape and then was immediate instant headache and was weird. And Delta 9, I bought some gummies locally, and I'm not going to name the company because that would be mean, but it did absolutely nothing. And an hour later, I ate another, and 3, I ate until all this, I felt speedy almost. It was very weird, but not, but like my brain wanted to go, but my body was relaxed.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a sugar high.
Well, I think we also fail to
Ton of
recognize that, how are those cannabinoids being received in those receptors?
Yeah.
Are they directly affecting that receptor?
Yeah.
Rather than doing so indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why we see such a prevalence of different. I don't know if I want to use the word side effects, but experiences of people, because some people have used those products and they've said, hey, they've helped me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think we have to then ask the question, don't you think if we had more expanded cannabis freedom,
Mm-hmm.
that the folks who are either retailing those products or making those products, because it's one of those things that we've seen a lot of hard times here in the hemp industry.
Oh, yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
And there were some, and a lot of people have suffered from that financially. And some companies, they were just selling their CBD isolate to make their money, but then that went to someone else who was converting it.
Mm-hmm.
And those people can't always be held accountable for that, but we do live in a kind of capitalistic nation, so there's the freedom to make some money, and we all have personal responsibility of making our own decisions. But it's one of those things that I think that if we had greater how do I want to say this, freedom of cannabis, and there's nothing wrong with some basic regulations. I think we're a little over-regulated in this country, but I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on that, but I do think that we would see a little less maybe concerns there. I mean, we'd have some regulations, but it would allow for other products to maybe fill that slot,
I think absolutely if cannabis was federally legal, we would not see Delta 8 or any of those synthesized products on the shelves, because if you look at where they're sold, it's all in states where it's illegal, where cannabis is illegal. So yeah, we don't sell any of that stuff. It's all naturally derived from the plant. And we're able to essentially use the mass of a product in order to increase the THC in a product. So,
and by saying in those states where cannabis is illegal, what we are ultimately telling our leaders is that all the people in our nation in every state are using cannabis.
Yes.
So let's work together here.
So for you, obviously, it's got to be a passion and a dedication.
Oh, yeah.
To the industry for you to be doing all this extraordinarily hard work. And I can also imagine that you're probably in Frankfurt somewhat, and
sometimes
working with legislation or but what I really want to know is, so do you, if you're comfortable, and you can say no and we can edit this out, good thing we're not live, do you currently use for medical reasons, or do you currently use for recreational, or what's your personal?
A little bit of both. I mean, medically, yes, I use not necessarily THC medically in very minor amounts. So I was diagnosed with Lyme disease back in 2015. I went 2 years undiagnosed, started just getting really crazy things happen to me. Ended up having to self-diagnose because we're in Kentucky and, people don't really know about it. In fact, the first doctor I went to, after I had been diagnosed, I finally got to go see this internal medicine doctor, and I was like, yeah, I traveled to all these places and I got Lyme disease. And she was like, well, we don't have Lyme in Kentucky. I'm like, I just told you that I was in like 5 other countries. What? Clearly you're not listening. So yeah, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, really didn't have anything to turn to. So I went to this one doctor in Midway. He told me to essentially take supplements. And a friend of mine handed me some CBD that they were selling. I was in the hemp industry at the time, but I was more on the grain and fiber side. Okay. And kind of thought, like, I had smoked cannabis regularly, but kind of was like, well, CBD, whatever. And then I started using it and found that I had an increase in energy levels. I could move around more. I'd increase in mobility. My mood had enhanced, just kind of like incrementally, but noticeable.
That's awesome.
And so I just like use that and continue to tweak formulations and start to, just try and improve my health naturally through that.
And as far as you're concerned with it, did you, was it smoking? Was it edible? Was it topical?
So a lot, all of the above.
Fair.
Yeah. So a lot of, initially capsules and oils. I now do pretty much capsules regularly on a medicinal basis. And then topicals as well, especially, I have really bad knee pain. So I use that a lot on my knees, on my hands, which is why I was asking you about that hand lotion, and on my spine. And if I'm using recreationally, I will either have a gummy or I'll smoke. I found though, because weed these days is so dang potent, I can't really use it.
I was just talking about that last week where we went to Vegas and I had a whole experience at Meow Wolf and there were too many children.
Oh, cool.
And
I mean, not to the bad experience, but to the Meow Wolf.
I mean, it wasn't like a bad, it was just, there's too many children and they know I'm high, so I have to leave right now.
And, I think that brings up a good point, because I was reading an article the other day that talked about how, there was this time where folks who were interbreeding cannabis plants to get like that highest THC strain, that now there's kind of that race to get that higher CBD and a good terpene profile. And that makes me think about, because when I was younger and I was smoking, I was getting cannabis from people who went to school with my parents, and they were probably growing out in a cornfield or something, But you had a seed or two, But you could smoke that all day long and get things done.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a lightweight now. Maybe I'm just getting older. I don't know, but I mean.
Well, you do get more sensitive to THC as you age.
That's true. So, today I've found a couple strains that I've tried that have worked well for me, and then I've tried some that I'm like, that's just not for me. And to flip back to your lime, I know some people here in Kentucky that suffer from that, and so if they're listening to this, you can listen to Annie and kind of follow her lead there. But I know
better yet, go see Annie.
Yeah, that's right. And
she'll help you out.
That's right. And she's got a website, and she can talk about that in a minute too if they're out of town. But Lyme disease is something that a lot of people they deal with. I know that she had to go to North Carolina to get diagnosed.
Yeah.
And so one of the people that I know. But I'm glad that you were able to discover that, and just like how when we came out with our products, it was because of something that it was helping us, and that's ultimately what you've done. And I do want to ask, with CannaBuzz here in Lexington, so that is Lexington's first cannabis bar, correct? Is it Kentucky's?
It's Kentucky's. It's potentially the United States', although probably not. I mean, I know that there's somewhere in Tennessee that has something. It's more of a restaurant. Well, we're really focusing more on like the bar, like craft cocktails that you can get infused, mocktail or cocktail, or a cannabis infused.
And I've been down there and I've had one or two of those, and they're good.
They're pretty good.
They are good.
We got to go on Friday.
Yeah. You can also not necessarily get THC in it. You can get CBG, which is really good mood enhancer. So we're really looking forward to, as we roll things out in a bigger fashion, having fun with it, doing terpene infused, you get the taste of cannabis without having any cannabinoids. Then people who are drug tested, can experience cannabis to an extent without failing a drug test.
I love that.
I've had both the CBG and the THC ones down there, and they're not only delicious, but it's a nice feeling afterward.
Yeah,
it was super nice.
And it is. So I guess that's so. Are you? The bar is ours? They're not. If I can speak, because you just reminded me of. So you're talking about cannabinoids without, or the taste without any of the actual cannabinoids, and remind me of the new sort of mocktails that are coming. When we were originally planning our wedding, one of the things that I was going to do was, we just got married in June, by the way.
Congrats. I got married in September.
Yay! Congratulations. One of the things we were going to do was have like all those what are they called? They're spiritless spirits.
Oh,
they
yeah.
call them, or what, they taste
Yeah,
like
I know.
gin,
It's like a nootropic drink in a way.
They've got them now with like mushrooms.
Those are
herbal
different.
infusions.
These are like spiritless bourbon.
Yeah. So
I've seen those, but what's the name for them? Just spiritless.
It's a spiritless
Okay.
liquor.
Yeah, it's spiritless. And there's different companies, so it
Spiritless
tastes
beverage.
like bourbon, but there's no actual
buzz.
alcohol in it. And the same, they have tequilas, and they're all
And
different
wine
companies. These ones are different from the whatever you were just.
The nootropic
Yeah,
mushroom
Yeah,
ones.
those are
that's-
different. Like
Yeah.
these are supposed to be for people that are truly AA or whatever, who don't want
or pregnant
or pregnant or what. Yeah,
You're just going for the flavor.
you're just going for the flavor
Okay.
without any
Yeah.
psychotropic.
Or like being, if you didn't drink, but you went to a bar, you could still like hang out with your friends and not feel like the weirdo drinking a water. It would instead be like, oh, I have this cocktail. You don't even know that I'm not drinking.
And I love the idea too of like being able, because one of the things that I know, we were talking a little bit about like addiction tendencies. One of the things that I know that I'll go to a bar and I'll order a drink, and even if I don't want to like keep drinking alcohol per se, it's like, oh, that flake, I don't want to switch to Coca-Cola. All this, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Having that
Right,
thing
right,
in
right.
your hand too, just like
or water, like that's the. But if I could keep drinking my gin and tonic, you know, I don't drink. Why did I just say gin and tonic? I don't even drink gin and tonics. I'm a tequila girl, tequila and soda. But if I could keep drinking, you know, that flavor of tequila without still consuming the alcohol, that's awesome. That's why I love it.
You also actually is probably a good trick for bartenders. You know, somebody's overserved. They're like, "Oh, give me a bourbon." You're like, spiritless.
There you go.
I think it's technically illegal. For
Well,
us to
that
do
might.
but
I was wondering.
well,
bud.
isn't it? Like,
What if
I
they
read a
were?
whole story about a bartender saw a woman that appeared to be pregnant, refused to serve her, and she actually wound up suing him and won because
She
it's
wasn't
a
pregnant.
sad story. She was not pregnant
Well,
anymore.
Yeah.
maybe
She still appeared pregnant, but she was no longer pregnant.
Yeah.
And yeah, she sued the guy or the
Wow.
restaurant.
Well, I think that's where we insert our friends, so that whoever your sidekick is the person who then gets you that drink, and then they
There
they
you
make the
go.
decision for
Fair
you.
enough. But yeah, that would work. But your bar, so this is alcohol infused with.
It can be alcohol or not. No alcohol.
Right.
With spirit or without spirit.
So are you infusing the alcohol?
No,
Okay.
we infuse on site. We're gonna have to change our method of doing it thanks to the new Kentucky regs that came out recently. But
course.
it's okay. We've got a way. Just got to change some packaging.
You seem like a person with a lot of ingenuity. So I imagine.
You kind of have to have it if you're gonna be in this
do.
market.
You have to.
It's-
You have to have.
Oh, these are the
that.
new
You
rules.
gotta-
Okay, we're gonna break them,
Right?
but not break
but not
them.
break them.
Yeah, we're gonna push the limit.
I love that. And you also do occasional dinners. I know that.
Yeah,
as well.
so we did. So we've got a 2-star Michelin chef that's on our team. He's not only a Michelin chef for like normal chefery, but he's also a cannabis chef. Also, like you had got into cannabis really because of his GI issues and found that as a medicinal cure. So, yeah, he made some phenomenal dishes earlier this year. We did a 5-course meal that was like a sit-down meal. It was a little stuffy. It was delicious food, but the vibe was just not really there. So the second time we did social. And it was more of a laid back, kind of come as you go. You could mingle. And then it was just like appetizers that we would roll out. And you could get it infused or non-infused. So you could try Michelin Chef without having to, get high on everything.
Or if you needed just one or two.
Or if you needed a break. Yeah.
Take a little pause.
Yeah,
Just in case.
which is always good, because it takes a while for cannabis to kick in. Suddenly you've had too much and you're like, there's no going back.
On food, it's a fun. I've eaten at a few Michelin star restaurants. My husband, we did Joel Robuchon when we got married in Vegas, which is the only 3 Michelin star restaurant in Nevada, I think.
Nice.
That's a whole foodie thing, and it was we think down on purpose because it was Robuchon. Anyway, but
I saw photos on your social media and it looked really good.
regardless of that, I almost said irregardless. I'm so glad I used to say irregardless to annoy my friends, and then it just became a habit. But I've broken myself of it. So anyway, regardless of that, it's funny because with Michelin star chefs, you have this where either it's very like everything is very serious and must be taken very seriously, and follow all these rules, or you go someplace like Alinea or El Bullier where chefs like Grant Ashatz and I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but their whole thing is play with your food. So it's like make it be sensory and
See, I'm about that.
But
I'm
those
about
guys love to also. Those are the guys that like to trick you. Like they'll serve you what looks like a raw egg, but it's really like a mango
cool.
jelly with a coconut foam and
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Food. It's where we are.
Hey,
This is Cannalachia.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
It's cannabis,
food,
cuisine,
music,
and chords.
Yeah.
Well, so with the location of CannaBuzz is really cool because it's on Manchester Street in downtown-ish Lexington Distillery District, and we're actually, with the building and the lot itself, one side of it will be the dispensary and bar, and then you'll actually be able to walk through it like you do in like a brewery or distillery, and you can see production going on.
Cool.
You'll be able to see the production of making gummies and making different edibles and cosmetics and things like that, because we're building it out so that our production facility for all these products that are sold within the store is on site right there.
I love that.
So you can see that experience, and then you'll be able to walk through to the back of the lot in the outside, and we're creating a beer garden and a food truck garden with another bar. So
Live music.
we're gonna do some sort of music. We haven't really figured it out. There's two like music venues right by us, about to be a third. So we don't want to be like that, but having entertainment for sure. We've got this cool like area in the back that's a shed kind of, and so doing like a big projector with silent movie nights or video game nights or
That sounds fun.
movie nights or whatever. We
Do you need
can
another
do that.
business partner?
We're looking for investors.
Well, and Lexington's getting a new park just up the street
Yeah,
from you too.
right. Yep.
So
0.2
could you
miles.
imagine you could just go and have you one of those infused cocktails and then take a walk in the park?
Yep.
that
Yeah, and
sounds-
that'll actually have a music venue. Probably will play a lot
Is
of
it going to be like an
bluegrass.
amphitheater?
Yeah, it's an amphitheater.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've said for a long time Lexington needs a downtown amphitheater.
Yeah, it really does. So that'll be, a big attractor for us, especially with the food trucks and everything. And, Manchester Street in general is really coming alive. It's the new Manchester Hotel's across the street from us. So that's a good attractor. And ideally we'll be able to, really build off of each other.
Yeah, that's a nice area, and it really is kind of one of those up-and-coming areas. It is, over the past few years, it's just gotten, I know the pandemic slowed some things, but every time I go down there, it's just a different feel. It's growing. Everything from restaurants and ice cream and massage and now cannabis.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So it's great.
It's got like the quadruple threat of Lexington on Manchester Street,
That's
actually.
right.
It does.
The horses, bourbon, cannabis. And basketball.
That's the place to be.
And then bluegrass. If they,
And that's
if they
another
play
thing.
bluegrass, it'll
People
be the
coming in for a
the
ball
five.
game, they should
Yeah.
come over and see you, you know?
Yeah, we're actually, we just launched tonight on our Instagram. If you go to Manchester Music Hall or the Burl or UK basketball game and probably whatever show is going to be at Rep Arena or event, you can come to CannaBuzz and show your ticket and get 10% off.
Nice.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
So everyone out there listening, don't forget that next time you're at Rep Arena or Central Bank Center.
Yep.
Or it's always going to be Rep Arena to me. I'm sorry. I grew up. So yeah.
It's the arena itself is still Rep Arena, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still
yeah.
says- yeah.
Can't get rid of that name.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how to segue into this, but
Well, this is a good segue.
Just like that, Amanda.
just like that. So I want to talk about. Obviously, we know where you're at now as an adult with cannabis usage, but we like funny stories on this show. So we're just wondering if you have what was your high? So we have cats. I don't know where they came from. No, I do know where they came. They apparently escaped.
Oh my gosh, they're funny looking.
Escape.
Yeah, that one got shaved. These are not actually our cats.
He's
They're
pretty.
friends' cats.
They belong to the facility. I thought we locked them all up, but
We
they decided
did. I don't know how they got out.
This was the moment to escape.
Well, we didn't lock them out. We don't want PETA coming after. They have their own playroom in the building, just so you know, and that's where they go. It's like kitty daycare while we're
It is.
recording, but they somehow escaped.
So back to my other question. So, as a kid, did you use cannabis as a teenager, as a kid, and do you remember what your first experience was like?
Oh yeah. Can't forget that first time.
Really?
See,
I can't remember mine.
I can't either. I know some, but I can't.
Oh no, mine was pretty unforgettable. I was in spring break, freshman year of high school, and a bunch of my girlfriends and a couple guy friends, we were all at one of the like apartments that we had rented for the weekend or the week, and I don't know where we got the pot. One of the guys had got it, and I don't know whose idea it was of like, oh, let's go get some weed, but I hardly even knew what it was at the time. And so our friend had got the weed, and then we were like, well, what do we do with this? How do we smoke it? We didn't have any rolling paper, and so somebody rolled it up in a phone book paper. And it was between that or the Bible.
That's
and
what
we're
I was like, you were in a hotel
let's
room.
do a phone book paper. Back in the days when there were phone books. And then, it got later and we're like, all right, let's smoke this. No one had a lighter. We're like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? So one of our brilliant friends, it was like a condo, so it had a little kitchen. So she lit a piece of paper on fire and had to run from the little kitchenette into the, like, through the living room and into the bedroom and out on the balcony. And she's like running through the whole apartment with this open flame, like, ah! We're like, oh my God. And so, we lit it, and then we're all like sitting around smoking it. And then we just had like a giggle fest for, like, I don't know, an hour or so. I don't really remember getting very high, but I think like the whole just experience of being around, all my best friends, we had like done this for the first time, and then the way that it happened, and it was just like humorous in its own. And then from there it was just like, oh, I want to try that again.
Right.
Not like a opioid where I'm like, I have to have it.
Right.
It was like, yeah, like, where can I get some when I'm back home? And, and so then the second time I did it, I was with two of my friends at my house, and my dad had been like out of town or something. And we didn't want our clothes to smell. So we got naked and went outside.
That is amazing.
What is
my
the
mom
show?
was
like,
home.
Maybe that's a new show, Naked and Hot.
Naked and High.
Like, what is it? Like the one where you're naked
Naked and afraid?
Yeah, so we can have Naked and Hot.
Yeah,
I
Naked
just
and
call
High.
that the butthole show.
Yeah.
But I feel really bad for all the cameramen because it's just 90% buttholes. That they're looking at.
I'm sure. So yeah, we got naked and we went outside and smoked it out of a can.
Yep.
And we were naked and outside, and as we're like about to smoke it, I see my dad's headlights like pulling into the driveway. We're like, run! So we like dropped everything and ran back inside, got under the covers, and pretended like we were asleep. And he came down. I was like, oh, okay, they're good. And then went back upstairs, and then after he left, we like ran back outside.
So good.
And so, those were the first two very memorable times smoking pot. I don't remember the third. It wasn't as remarkable.
Now recount every single time
Yeah.
you've ever used cannabis.
Yeah, that would take years.
I love how, as kids, how like I didn't know where to go buy a pipe when
Yeah.
I was a freshman in high school, but we smoked out of cans. We
Apples.
carved
Yeah.
apples.
I've never smoked out of an apple.
Now I'll tell you this one. I've done an apple, and growing up I had a lot of female friends, and that came in handy. And I hope you all forgive me for this, but we did use a tampon wiper a few times.
Just about to say, did you ever do the
No, I didn't. That's a good idea.
the applicator?
Yeah.
But we would wrap the applicator in tinfoil because that's genius and that's so much better for your health. Go ahead, kids. Smoke aluminum.
No, don't.
We thought if you burn the the cardboard would just set on fire.
Right.
Plastic would melt, but we tried all of it.
Yeah, wow.
Lots of things.
Yep.
I know apples. I mean, Sarah, I remember us coring out different things. I had a friend, I think, that used a cucumber once.
Oh, wow.
Like,
okay.
literally used a cucumber.
That feels very wet.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a whole. Well, no, it was it for a quick. It worked. I don't know how it was a quick smoke. Carb on the
Yeah, like
side.
hollow it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, just like drill a hole. You had a little hole here. It was your carb, so it was like a cucumber pipe. You didn't get you took a few hits and that was about it because it was wet, but you had to light it up. It was-
Gourds of all sorts.
But you did what you did with whatever you had, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
But no, the apple worked really well.
Yeah, the
So,
apple's legendary.
And the-
I can't believe I've never
Oh.
actually smoked out of one.
I just
Gotta add that to my bucket list.
what do you call it? Like a memory, like a member berry just hit my brain. Gravity bongs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With the 2 liters.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that was a big one. Oh yeah, we also like fabricated a small gravity bong. I don't totally
Yeah.
remember. I think it just had like water in the bottom. It was like a normal water bottle, and you put water in the bottom, and then we would light the cap. Yeah, and then it would fill. I don't know. I don't remember how we did it, but
Right.
it worked very well.
No, and some of the kids I went to school with were absolute like geniuses. There was a kid in my high school that used to carry around this log with him, and I went to an arts high school, so I thought it was just like either he's doing an experiment or he's just a weirdo. Like we were all weirdos.
Yeah.
We were, that like we are the weirdos, Mister.
But
But that
that's
was my entire high school. But so he would carry on this log with him all the time. And finally, one time we were all out at the smoking spot, and he puts the log in front. And he like slides a piece of the bark out and like does this and does. It was like a wooden puzzle bong, but so he like pulled this piece and then it screwed into this piece. I mean, it was all wood, and it was just one
Nice.
single log.
For
and
real.
Slide the top up, but when he was a kid, it just looked like he was
Wow, that's
That's
impressive.
the
It
weirdo
didn't
with the
stink?
log, but it was him carrying
I
around.
bet
his-
everyone loved the weirdo then.
they did. They did. But
Yeah,
it
once
wasn't
they
a-
realized what he
turns
was
out wasn't a
doing.
weirdo after all. He was
Wow.
absolute genius. Walking around at school with his bong.
I like being weird and I love weirdos.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, like
that's awesome.
I went to arts high. We were all the weirdos, Mister. Every single one of us was not normal. Oh, so I think that's all the time we have for
Yeah,
today.
we're getting there. So, is there anything else that you wanna?
Yeah,
add
you want to
in?
tell us
Like-
about? Do you have any events coming up or?
We do have an event, but this is coming in January.
Yeah, you'll be the first episode of the year. We're gonna start.
Well, we have an event on
2024 off-
November 17th, but that doesn't help.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, come check out CannaBuzz, Cannabis Bar and Dispensary. It's at 938 Manchester Street. And we've got a lot of really good products, good educated people to help you support in your either wellness goals or your I want to get high goals. And, no discrimination on either end. So,
I love that.
yeah, otherwise, excited about Ohio and
What other industry can say that? We're
Right.
here to help you medically
Right.
or just to get you high.
yeah.
And you know what? And that just goes back to the. I truly believe that cannabis not only can save our Commonwealth, but it can our nation from so many things. I mean, fiscally, our health, our wellness, our mental health.
Yeah.
And what other industry can do that
Right?
altogether?
Not very many of them.
So
Build a house out of it, all your
yeah.
clothes.
Is that why maybe it's looked at as such a threat, though?
Potentially.
But
Actually, you know what can do that? Petroleum.
that's true. But
You just made me very sad.
Well, I mean,
No, I
But-
know.
that's
But-
where.
I think we need a balance in all things, and I think it's time. I think we have multiple generations, and
Yeah.
I think it's time for cannabis. And I'm really happy that you're here. I'm glad you came out to talk
Yeah,
to
thanks
Amanda
for
and
having
I,
me.
and I'm excited for Lexington having CannaBuzz and for what you've done. And I consider you a friend in the industry, and I would like to say thanks for all of the hard work that you have done and that you continue to do for not just hemp, medical cannabis, recreational cannabis, but cannabis as a whole, because it takes it's been rough over the past few years for people in the industry. It's been tough.
Yeah.
Many people are gone and are over it, but there are people who are hanging on, and they're fighting, and they're talking, and they're working, and I truly believe that there are great things coming for the Commonwealth and for our nation, and we just got to keep on going. We got to be there for each other.
Well,
So
Thomas the Tank.
that's
Thank you
right.
so much,
Keep it
Annie.
going. Yes, thank
Yeah, thank you.
And we can't wait. We're going to come down and maybe we'll do an episode on the road.
Yeah.
And we'll
do it
come
at
down-
CannaBuzz.
Come down and do it
Yeah.
at CannaBuzz.
Yeah.
That would be super fun.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
All right, that's it. That's our show for tonight. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in, subscribe.
Like, share, tell all your friends.
My Mickey, my moon to me, the vibe, just go with me. Everybody wanna play while they're on the play. Everywhere, everybody better want to play. Better read that with the vibe. Better 55 to 5 fans for the rain. If my mouth is about gold, okay. If you're high with me, if you want to play, never he got love to breath. We can let it on. Come on, Cannalachia.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, that's a great tune.